Is hosting on Turo even worth it anymore? If you're a Turo host or thinking about becoming one, you need to make sure you watch this video because I'm going to go over 3 disturbing, absolutely horrifying events that have happened in the Turo industry to me and others. So you're going to want to make sure you stay to the end to make sure you're covered every single time. Because these 3 shocking examples might make you rethink everything. Now, Turo has opened up the doors for a lot of people to make profit renting out their vehicles. But believe me guys, it's not just sunshine and profits. There's a lot of headaches, a lot of chaos, and I want to make sure you guys stick to the end because I'm going to break down all 3 of these examples that are all true stories to make sure that you are protected every single time. And guys, as Pittsburgh's #1 top Turo host, I have lived through all of these, so make sure you wait till the end because things get surprising and I want to make sure you guys are protected. I want you to learn from my mistakes and be protected. All right guys, so the first story I want to go over, it was a client of mine named Thomas. Now this happened to Thomas before he started working with us at Car Rental Coach. So Thomas, great guy, he lives in the Florida area close to Fort Lauderdale. So Thomas had 3 Chevy Suburbans and we're renting them, not making too much profit, but when working with us, we really changed that around. But before he started working with us, he had an incident where somebody trashed his interior completely. And guys, I have dealt with a lot of trashed interiors, from cigarettes to candy stains to people leaving gardening tools and going camping in the cars. But let me tell you this, Thomas's car was in worse condition than I've ever seen an interior in my life. It went beyond your basic cleaning and throwing a smoke bomb in there to get rid of the scent. So to break it down for you guys, Thomas's car went out for a 2-week trip. The guest was renting it for 1 week and then stopped extending and answering Thomas, so they kept it for an extra week without paying. So during this time, Thomas didn't know what to do. He reached out to Turo, they got their investigators, but he didn't know how to speak to investigators, how to speak to the guest, how to get the police involved, and how to get his car back as soon as possible. During that time, surprise, surprise, the guest did not keep that car in good standing. So Thomas showed me photos of this car when we started working with him. But let's just say this, it looked like somebody was living in that car for 3 years and doing nothing but hotboxing it with drugs with their friends to smoking as many cigarettes as one humanly can within a 2-week time span. I'm thinking he had to have at least 5 people in this car, the person that rented it, to even smoke this amount of cigarettes. But when he showed me the pictures, the ash actually filled up the entire cup holders. Like, I think you have to go out of your way to trash a car like this. It's almost as if you were on a competition on a reality show and they said, okay, how filthy can you make the interior of this car in 2 weeks? And then you win the grand prize if you make it the dirtiest. So this thing was bad. In addition to that, smoke and garbage in the car. They also had tons of cigarette holes throughout the furniture in the vehicle, which, you know, that's not the easiest to fix. You have to go to an upholstery place, and there's a lot that goes into that process when replacing a car's interior. So, like I said, car completely covered in ash, disgusting. Also, he said it smelled like urine, and from the sound of it, it wasn't animal urine. So I'll let you guys be creative and think about who else would have peed in this car. So we're thinking it was the guest, long story short. So car was a complete wreck. Thomas ended up getting the car towed back to him in Florida after dealing with Turo's team. And when he discovered this, he was in shock. He didn't know what to do. He thought maybe this Turo business isn't for him. And Thomas at the time, because he didn't work with us at Car Rental Coach, didn't understand how to file the proper claims, understand the type of insurance that you can use to make sure that this type of claim is covered. And he walked away from the whole thing only getting a $150 cleaning fee. He didn't even get the smoking fee because he didn't know how to submit the evidence. If Thomas would have worked with us at carrentalcoach.com like over 100 students have, he would have known that you can get loss of rental come insurance. You can get the upholstery changed and have that covered. And you can actually end up from this being a tragedy to something very positive where you're pocketing the money. So if you're somebody that struggles with insurance, you don't know if Turo's right for you because you're thinking, ah man, I don't want somebody to damage my car. Maybe you've been on the Facebook forums where you see every single horror story from people on Turo because they're not running the business right. That's why they have so many complaints. Then you want to go to carrentalcoach.com, fill out our quick 60-second survey, and when somebody trashes the interior or exterior of your car, you're covered every single time and come out smiling. Well, you might not come out super happy, but you're going to make a lot of money. I mean, nobody wants to clean the car, But that's why you can have employees or take it somewhere else and have everything covered for insurance. But Thomas's story resonated with me so much because I remembered when I first started my Turo business. And even before Turo, I was on a platform called HireCar. And let me tell you guys, HireCar is even worse than the worst thing you can imagine with Turo. So HireCar, you rent the car directly to Uber drivers, but the problem with that platform, they didn't do the best job with screening the people. So I started out with that, and guys, if you've watched some of my previous videos, you know that was a headache. So I had one guest during that time that was similar to what happened to Thomas. What happened with them? They were renting the car through HireCar. I was making very, very good money because keep in mind this car was only $5,000 that I bought, and the person was paying $40 to $45 a day on this vehicle. So I was very happy. And they were renting the car for over 3 months. But then after 3 months, guess what happened, guys? Similar to Thomas, I stopped hearing from them. I didn't know what to do. I thought, should I call the police? Should I contact HireCar? Should I give the guests some time? Well, I tried all three. And after doing my due diligence, I went the HireCar route. I was able to get the car repossessed, but guys, this was not an easy one to repossess because the woman was refusing to get out of the car. She was living in my vehicle. I never thought that somebody would rent a car to live in that wasn't at least, a camper or something. I mean, this thing was small. It was a little Chevy Sonic, a 2008 Chevy Sonic. So not the best vehicle to live in. Not that anybody wants to live in a car, but I get it. People can go through hard times. But let me say, she was not a great guest. This car had methamphetamine in it, it had crack cocaine in it, and other drugs that I don't care to identify. So long story short, I was able to work with my insurance to get covered, but this was early on in my career before I understood the extent of the money that I could receive. So I only received pennies compared to the thousands of dollars that I would have earned if I knew everything I know now about insurance. But that's why I felt Thomas's pain so much. I was like, oh man, this happened to me, and same exact story. And it happens to hundreds of hosts every year, and that's just because they don't understand how insurance works. And how should they? There's really nothing online that teaches you this. I had to hire mentors, go through many different Turo calls, talk to the best hosts in the nation to get this information, and also talk to insurance companies and agents in depth. And thankfully, my father actually owns a roofing company, and he is a specialist in insurance because he's dealt with insurance companies his entire life to help people get roofs when there's hail damage or any of those claims that the insurance company doesn't want to cover. So he taught me a lot of the tricks of the trade too. But back to Thomas. So Thomas came to me with that story. I felt bad. Unfortunately, there was nothing we could do with him at that time because he called us like 4 months after to sign up for Car Rental Coach than when the incident actually occurred. And you can't really do a lot when this stuff's retroactive. But thankfully, when working with Thomas, we had some similar claims. And when those happened and working with us at carrentalcoach.com, I was able to make Thomas thousands of dollars. And he didn't mind the smell of smoke when cars came back at that point. So guys, people will mess up these interiors. I've seen some horrendous stuff. Just give you one other quick example before we go into my second story. We had somebody else that got shot in a vehicle. I couldn't believe this one. I had to go to the tow yard, identify the car, and there was a bullet hole with blood in it. But guys, like I'm saying, you have to know how this insurance works. I cannot stress that enough because these interiors can get crazy, from bodily fluids to cats and dogs to, I've even had somebody tell me they left a baby in a car before that I've worked with. But you can't really file that big of an insurance claim for a baby. That's just more shocking. I guess if the baby throws up in the car, you can get a cleaning fee. But that wasn't her main priority right there. Had to make sure the kid was okay because that's absolutely nuts. All right, guys. And number two, this is another shocking one. This one you may have heard on one of my previous videos, but it's still just makes my mind explode thinking about this one. I still can't really believe it happens, but it gives me a great story to tell during the holidays or when I'm with friends because everybody is as shocked as I was. So let me walk you guys through this. So I'm sleeping in my bed with my wife. It's about, I'd say 4:30, maybe 5 o'clock in the morning, and I hear a pounding on my door. Pounding, like this thing is loud. And I'm thinking, who could this be at 5 in the morning? I had no clue. I don't have any friends that would disrupt me at that time. If it were family, they would just call me. So I'm thinking this has to be an emergency. So I leap out of bed, kind of scared, almost ready to grab a weapon because I'm thinking who could be coming at my door at this hour? Well, I look out my window and guess what I see? the police. That's when my heart dropped. I knew I didn't do anything illegal, so I thought this has to be something with the rental car business, because what else could it be at that point? I also have some rental property, so I thought maybe it could have something to do with that, but turns out it was for the rental car. So open the door. The police officer looks at me a little bit confused because I'm in my pajamas, but I don't think he should be that confused. He knocked on my door at 5 o'clock in the morning, and I'm an early person. I usually wake up about 6:30, 7, but come on, 5's a little bit early. Anyways, he tells me that my Nissan Rogue was involved in a robbery and asked me where my car was because he assumed I was the culprit at first. And then I explained to him quickly that I was the owner of the vehicle, but I have a car rental business. And then his position started to shift a little bit. He started to be a little bit nicer. And then we got down to the details of what happened. So a guest rented my Nissan Rogue, and what they did, they took a chain and they went to a bank within the Pittsburgh area. They wrapped the chain around an ATM, and they somehow ripped it out of the wall. And I'm not sure how they hooked it up to the Nissan Rogue, because I don't believe there was a tow hitch on this. So they must have done something creative. But anyways, they ripped this thing out of the wall, loaded it in the back of the Nissan Rogue, which I guess, Nissan, if you're watching this, that's a great thing you guys can do for your branding. Nissan Rogue, SUV space so big you can fit a whole ATM in it. Or maybe not, but they took it out, and I had to help the police identify what happened. And it turned out this guy was renting off me like 5 times before. And the craziest part about this guest, he would bring back the car spotless. Like, he was one of my best guests ever. He was always on time with it, never late on payments. The car was always in great condition, so I never would have thought that this guy was committing crimes. But apparently he did this with 4 other of my cars. It wasn't the same situation. He saved the stealing an ATM for when he took the Rogue, but the other cars he was doing robberies and stuff as well. So I gave the police the information they needed. They were able to identify him. I also called Turo to alert them, and I blocked him from renting from me anymore so he couldn't. And obviously he got kicked off of the Turo platform, but I was really able to identify this guy's routes and help the police, and also help me when it came to the insurance, because there was some small damage to my vehicle, because I had the right GPS installed on my car. A lot of people just get the GPSs that you plug into the dash, and they can be ripped out easily. So come on, guys. If you're a car thief and you see a GPS sticking right in the port in the front of the vehicle, right under the steering wheel, what are you going to do? Well, I'll tell you what I would do if I was a car thief. I would look at it, I would laugh, I would rip it right out, and I'd throw it right out the window. And that's what a lot of people do from what I've spoken to other hosts on Turo. I get all my GPSs hardwired, and when you guys work with us at carrentalcoach.com, I will recommend my top GPSs, because let me tell you guys what, just like the cars you put on the platform and how important that is, not all GPS units are made equally. So that is another major part of this business that you don't want to mess up. But what's cool about my GPS, the guy was still on a rental with me, so I was able to shut his car off so the ignition wouldn't turn on, get the car towed, and then help the police find him. And I had 72 hours of history on my GPS showing his exact routes. So I was able to help the police identify every single place he was at, which also helped prove my own innocence by having this trail to show everything that happened within the last 72 hours, which I don't believe I would have went to jail or had any issues with this, but having that information is always better than having no information during a time like that. But that's a pretty crazy story. The car wasn't that damaged, surprisingly, especially after ripping an entire ATM out of a wall, but you guys get the point. It's about having the right tracking system and the right insurance. So that's something I would have never thought was going to happen to me, and a pretty rare case from talking to other Turo hosts, but cars are stolen all the time. I had a guy take a car to Mexico. I ended up getting back because of my tracker. He went over the border. We were able to seize it. So that was nice. And guys, there's been so many times where guests are telling me, they're 5 minutes away from the car lot. They're going to be dropping off their vehicle. And guess what? No car. But what I do now, you can trust, but then verify. Check my phone, look at the app, say, that's interesting. They say they're going to be 5 minutes away to drop off the car, but they're in California. And I'm in Pittsburgh, so guys, do the math. I don't think you can get from California to Pittsburgh in 5 minutes, let alone 5 hours, maybe 5 days. So important that when you're doing this business, you're setting it up properly, because there could be so many headaches. And if I didn't have the right GPSs installed, sure, I might have got my car back eventually and even maybe got the insurance claim, but I would have missed out on weeks and weeks to maybe months of earnings while police try to find the car. I get it back, maybe get the insurance money if I didn't set it up right. But I'm missing out on all that revenue the whole time. And the most important part about this business is keeping the cars on the road rented. You do not get paid from having cars sit at your lot. You want consistent bookings. You want these cars on the road. You want these cars to be booked so much that you forget what they actually look like. And that's happened with a few of mine. I've had rentals go for a year where I see the money coming in and then it gets returned. I'm like, I forgot I owned this. But guys, like I said, that kind of stuff can happen, from people destroying the interiors to stealing the cars. And I have one third story I'm going to share for you, and this is another personal antidote. So when I first started this business, I wanted to rent more luxury cars. The reason I wanted to rent luxury cars, I like luxury cars. I like BMWs, I like Mercedes, and I drive a Mercedes, but after doing the math and learning this business inside and out over the last 4 years, I realized that the math does not make sense, and you should not mix pleasure with business. I learned that the hard way. When I started this business, I purchased a couple BMW X5s. I like BMW X5s, I think they're great SUVs, but maybe not the best cars to rent. This was one of my higher end cars. I think it was around $45,000 is what it was worth. But what happened was somebody took it and rented it from me. They didn't tell me they got into an accident, and they returned the car back totaled pretty much. The entire front of this car was smashed in like it was in a head-on collision, and it was just to the point where it was able to drive. I'm actually surprised that there was no major mechanical damage to the engine because of the way the front was smashed in. It was still like in the cradle and still salvageable, but I couldn't believe this person rented this car and brought it back in this condition and didn't say anything. Well, when I turned it into insurance, Turo actually didn't give me what it would cost to fix the car. Remember, this was early on in my career before I understood the different ways you can make money through insurance, and how sometimes you don't even have to use your own insurance. You can go after the guest, which, guys, I'll show you how to do all that kind of stuff if you work with us. But anyways, this car was in such bad condition, I didn't know what to do. And I ended up receiving $3,000 less than what it took me to repair this vehicle. And once I repaired it, I just sold it, tried to break out of this car because it was such a headache. But guys, I lost $3,000 from renting a car and somebody else damaging it because I didn't know how insurance worked. And also, it turned out this person crashed into 3 other people's cars on this night. So I'm thinking there must have been something going on where they might have been drinking or on drugs, or something suspicious was happening, because they not only damaged this car bad, they hit 3 other people on their rampage. So I'm surprised they even returned the car, because most times they don't even take the courtesy to do that. Looked at the car, ended up losing $3,000 out of my own pocket. And then 6 months later, I hired a mentor to help me with insurance. And he told me this all could have been avoidable if I would have known how to file it properly and understand how to speak to the insurance companies. So that was a $3,000 lesson I learned. I'll never make that mistake again or let something like that happen. But then months later, I also was getting letters from other insurance companies from the people my car hit. Because remember, these cars are registered to you. Mine are registered under my business, but my business, is obviously attached to me. I'm the sole owner. So I'm receiving these emails from them. I had to deal with all of this paperwork. So not only did I lose $3,000, I spent hours and hours, probably, I would say at least 15 hours dealing with the mess of what happened here. I had to email all the insurance companies back. I had to provide them proof. I didn't know how to talk to them. And that's when I hired this mentor, because I was so exhausted and I thought maybe this car rental business isn't for me. I just lost $3,000 on one of my first cars. Sure, I had some other successes, but I was feeling down in the dumps. And I never want to feel like that again. And that's why I said I hired that mentor. He really showed me what to do. And now every time there's an insurance claim, I'm not excited that somebody got into an accident. Thankfully, no one's ever been hurt during one of these. I'm happy because I know I'm going to recoup money, and I know I'm going to get a big check that's actually more profitable than just renting the car. So guys, to provide you some value here, like, what do you do in these situations? How can you prevent this kind of stuff from happening? There's a few major keys, and here are the basics. You want to make sure that you are taking clear pre-trip photos. Do not skimp on the photos you take of this car before, because if you do, you are going to be so upset when your insurance claim is denied, or you can't get a smoking fee covered, a cleaning fee covered. Do not be lazy with your pre-trip photos. I suggest taking at least 30. It's like a dentist says, do I have to floss all of my teeth? He'll say, yeah, just the ones you want to keep. Well, it's the same thing when you take photos of your Turo car. What parts of the car do you want to photograph? The parts of the car that you want to be covered under insurance. So that is number one. Number two, know the right trackers to use. Don't be cheap on them. Don't get the one that just plugs in. That's going to end up costing you more money. It might save you a little bit of time and money at first. Over the long run, just going to be another headache. So proper photos, proper GPS. And the third thing, make sure you understand how insurance works. Make sure you study it, you look things up, understand there's different types, there's a whole lot of different coverage, especially if you guys get into the private rental space. I do private rentals as well as Turo, and I've also done hire car and get around. And the insurance is different for all of them. There's off-rental insurance, there's insurance that's on the car when it's being rented, there's commercial insurance. So things can get really complicated. Guys, the insurance industry is huge when it comes to the rental space, and I know all the inside tricks of the trade to make sure that you come out every single time. And if you guys want one-on-one consulting and coaching and want to work with me directly, just go to carrentalcoach.com, fill out a quick 60-second survey, and see if you qualify to work with us. We don't take everyone. You have to be qualified. We have to make sure you're serious. Just like when I went to my mentor, when I first started out with one car, now I have over 50. He didn't want to work with me until he saw that I had a proven track record of keeping my word. So we only work with people that really want to do this business and are serious. So if you're one of those people, make sure to go to carrentalcoach.com and we'll be happy to hear from you. And guys, I know I spoke a lot about insurance in this video. Well, thankfully, I have another video for you guys you can watch right here. That's a masterclass on Turo insurance. Talk to you guys soon.